Tell me your name. Yes, we have known each other from Toastmasters for a few years. Do I have dementia? Look into the medical life of Blair. Here's Blair.
Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, it is a pleasure to be able to share with you some of my life experiences. Many, many hours. All night long, I traveled around looking for the sun, and it finally dawned. Brought my attention to the idea that I was moving into a new part of my life, a new understanding of my life. Many of you know that a couple months ago, and it is a couple months already, I celebrated my 80th birthday. 80 sounded like an impossible time when I began to look on it and say, my mother died at 60 and I thought she was old. And now here I am, what am I doing with 80? But something else happened. I started to forget things. I found that I couldn't remember where I left the pile of papers that were in the office but now are in the bedroom, and I would get confused trying to find them. And then I found myself saying to self, get your life organized, take charge, you know what you're doing. And then when I drove to church one Friday night, thinking it was Saturday night and there was nobody in the parking lot, I said, you know, I think I've got a problem going on. And I wasn't about to admit to it, but I had to, because I thought, am I going to be able to write my gifts to my grandchildren? I've got to get busy because I'm on the road of dying that happens when you get past 80. I'm a doctor, and so is my husband. And together, we spent many years practicing. I always love to share with people that David and I were dating, and he said to me that he was kind of interested. And I said, wait, you're studying finance. I'm marrying a doctor. And he said, okay, I'll be in the business office. You can find me there. And he changed his major that day. So we ended up married. And another special message that I'd like to share is that when we were in school and doing our training part of the program, I came home one afternoon and I said, well, guess what? I learned how to do a prostate exam today, but the men didn't like it. And he said, guess what? Do you think I like it? Are the men like me doing it to me? No, but that's how we spent many years of our lives, sharing all those wonderful moments and sharing how we could easily practice and care for people in all many different ways. But now I was forgetting people's names. I would walk up to Guasi and I'd have to introduce her to somebody else and I'd be like, oh my God, I can't even remember what her name is. Luckily I remembered it right now, but unfortunately it was already there waiting for me. I also had this tremor, a little fine tremor in my right arm that I had not talked to anybody about because I thought, well, you know, lots of old people do have tremors, so I'm not going to make a big deal about that. Speaking of women and taking care of health providers, do you know what you call a woman with only one leg? Eileen. So I had this tremor, I had this forgetfulness, I had this feeling that I was losing control of my life. And my grandchildren love to laugh at me. So we're trying to establish a rapport where Christian always makes sure I laugh when I've got myself into this dilemma. So what do? I decided to see a neurologist. All right, I'm going to have to break down and go check this out. And one of the reasons that I was interested in doing that is because Alzheimer's is talked about all the time now. If you forget my name today, someone's going to say, oh, you must have Alzheimer's disease. We hear that on the street and in the workplace. I found myself saying, well, maybe I do have Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a very unique disease. We've known about it for 120 years, It's been a labeled diagnosis for all that time. And interestingly enough, the name of the person who discovered it is Alzheimer's, so that helps you remember the disease. The disease itself, actually what happens with Alzheimer's is that there is protein in the brain that is forced by some kind of a change in its environment to become solidified, to be solid. And so when you look at the scan of a person who has Alzheimer's, you see all these little white spots that are just taking up space. As soon as they attack the brain, they actually kind of cauterize it or burn it so that those cells in that part of the brain can't function anymore. And that part of the brain, it starts to lose function. We now can actually study the brain at great length and actually look at where the white spots are in certain parts of the brain, and they can actually say, you have this part problem, like putting things together, or putting a puzzle together. That might be a part of the brain that you have difficulty with. So they can predict which part of the brain is already involved. There are also tangles, which are little scroll up kind of items that appear in that brain too. Well, in order to determine if you have Alzheimer's, you get a PET scan, a special scan that looks at the electrical activity in the brain, and you find out whether all those little dots were there. I didn't have any little white dots in my brain. I didn't have Alzheimer's. Now that doesn't mean I don't have dementia. Now if I have dementia, not only can I not remember your name, but now I'm having trouble doing simple functions, cognitive functions that say, I can pull the credit card out, I can put it in the machine at the gas tank, and I can push the right buttons and get my gas tank filled. That might be one of the first things I lose. The other first thing that you lose with dementia is the ability to find your way home. Many people who are in early phases of dementia actually have difficulty traveling and following paths they even knew for all of their lives. So the dementia part is still possible for me, but there are multiple kinds of dementia. And so then we begin doing more tests. Well, what about this tremor? Well, the doctor says, I'm really worried about this, but we'll look at this later. And so I got an MRI and it was okay. So where am I right now with the red light flashing? I am saying, at least I'm attentive enough to know that I better get off this stage. If I really had flowing dementia, I would ignore that and go ahead and chat along here and keep you guys all paying attention on stage. But most importantly, I'll keep you updated on what's going on. But as it stands right now, I'm in the process of taking care of myself. Thank you.
Good job.